Mr. Supervisor, you are live.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September 1st regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Present.
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 Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today's meeting will have 7 public hearings, followed by a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less, and then the town will have resolutions to offer. But before we get started, we have our town historian, Hugh King, with us today.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, I will be in person next meeting, okay?
Excellent.
But today we're going to be talking about the assignments having to do with gardens. And I believe Councilwoman Rogers had Matilda Donahoe.
I did, and I love my power couple. If they were alive today, I think her and her artist husband, that's what they would be called. And I think she would be known as an Instagram influencer. So this is pretty heavy duty folks from East Hampton. So one of the first things I will say about Mrs. Ruger Donahoe, her husband was Gaines Ruger Donahoe, who was a renowned artist in his own right. He painted beautiful landscapes of East Hampton and East Hampton gardens, and they are spectacular, those paintings. His wife, Matilda Ackley Donahue, also was very important in her own right. One thing that she did is that she gave the East Hampton Village the meadow that faced their home on Egypt Lane, and it was a wildflower and bird sanctuary, and this is 1939. And more each year as the village builds up, this oasis of natural beauty is prized by East Hampton's residents and visitors. It is quiet and restful. The meadow, which Mrs. Donahoe gave as a memorial to her husband, who had so often painted it and loved it for many years. The other interesting contribution that Matilda Donahoe made was to initiate through the East Hampton Garden Club a committee called which gave away annual dooryard awards. And these were given to encouraging folks to keep initially window boxes in their homes in the village and the town full of flowers and to create gardens. And it grew into the rest of the front of their property. And the first prize, again, this was in the 30s. The first prize was $5. The second prize was $3, and the third prize was $2. And one of the third prize winners of the $2 of note from our prior conversations was George Fowler, whose place was shown, and this is from the East Hampton Star, whose place shows great taste. Groups of beautiful dahlias dot the lawn, which stretches far in the rear where purple asters can be seen. Over the picket fence is honeysuckle on the house roses. Scarlet sage, zinnias, and marigolds are gay notes, but the agreeable shade of trees is also present. So at that time, George was the recipient of the third prize. And I think there's a brief letter to the Star on the passing of Mrs. Ruger or Matilda Donahoe from August 3rd, 1939, which I'll read. Dear Sir, it is with a repetition of the lost and saddened feeling we all experienced last fall when our glorious elms went down, and I assume that's the hurricane of 38 they're talking about, that we heard the tragic news of the death in Philadelphia last Sunday of Mrs. Ruger Donahoe. Like one of our grand old trees, Mrs. Mrs. Donahoe was a symbol and a landmark in this community. She loved our village with the fervor of a pioneer, having come here over 50 years ago and fighting to the last to preserve the lore and simplicity and unspoiled beauty which first brought her among us. In passing, no one can say of Matilda Donahoe that she, quote, left no trace, end quote. Her lovely old home, her original, beautiful, and appealing garden, her wonderful gift of the meadows to our town, her untiring labor for the garden club, and her best beloved work, the dooryard gardens, all declare her forth on every side. Unobtrusive, shy, and hating prominence in any gathering, Mrs. Donohue could not yet hide from us. Her strong, fine character, her salty wisdom, loving service and loyalty, a charter member of the Garden Club of East Hampton, she was a very fountainhead of inspiration and vast lore as to every plant and shrub. To carry on the work of the dooryard gardens without her seems impossible. Who will give her absorbed interest the hours spent on analysis and comparison and completely fair judging poured out by her? But as a memorial to Matilda Donohue, the dooryard work must go on. Renowned devotion must be our tribute to her. Mrs. Donohue's name is invisible to most as they go to and fro in our streets, but to us who shared her labor, it blazes forth on countless lanes and byways, and in the innumerable perfect little gardens up and down the length and breadth of this village. So far, one small candle throws this light. So she was a immensely important contribution to the beauty of our town and village.
Yeah, thank you so much. And when she gave that land to the village, I believe it was the first time an individual gave away land for a public purpose. How about that?
That's
And
wonderful.
the other thing is, I did not know this. I did not know that George Fowler won an award for a garden, because you know who George Fowler was?
Yes.
Who knows?
Yeah, George Fowler was the gardener for Thomas Moran at Thomas Moran's house.
And Home Sweet Home.
Yes. Oh, yes, that's right.
Yes, he was the gardener for both places. That's great. All right, now, Councilwoman Overby, did she hand in her paper? All right, we'll wait.
He has an excused absence.
Okay. All right, Supervisor Van Scorik, apparently you got your assignment about Longhouse.
I did get my assignment, and it's good to be back among the living. It was kind of a long bout. Let's see, we're talking about Longhouse Reserve and the gardens there.
Mhm.
Longhouse was founded by Jack Leonard Larson. And Jack was born August 5th, 1927 in Seattle, Washington, to Maybelle and Elmer Larson, who were Canadians who had moved to Seattle, but they were of Danish-Norwegian ancestry. He was schooled in Bremerton, Washington, went on to the University of Washington to study architecture, but then decided not to pursue architecture and instead became interested in interior design, weaving, and furniture design. He moved to Los Angeles the following year and his focus on fabrics. Particularly, he became interested in ancient Peruvian textiles in Seattle and opened a studio in the city in 1951. From the time he started in the early 50s, he designed thousands of fabrics, patterns, and textiles associated with modernist architecture. The furnishings were popular in the 1945 post-war era. And he did a number of commissions for various important projects, including Lever House in Manhattan. He also designed for Pan Am Airlines, the airplane upholstery, and brought a cat and batik style of techniques to fabrics. But he also became very interested in collecting art. And back in, I think it was, where is it now? I think it was 80. So in 1975, he bought the property where Longhouse now is, and proceeded later, I think in 86, decided to build a house in the influenced by a Shinto shrine in Japan, 7th century Shinto shrine. And that was designed by architect Charles Forberg. The gardens at Longhouse are extensive. It's roughly 16 acres of property. It was agricultural land in the early 19th century, but had been allowed to go fallow and has a lot of second growth forest on it. But each area of the garden is almost into its own room or area, and it's planted with really an amazing variety of trees, bushes, flowering plants, reflecting pools, and the interchange between gardens and these outdoor spaces and the art that inhabits them is really a spectacular resource for the town. It's a wonderful place to go and relax and try and escape the madness of everyday life. Certain times of the year, there are particularly amazing blooms or events that are taking place within the garden. It changes throughout the year based on the seasons. There's an amazing bloom of daffodils in the springtime, which during COVID gave people respite from the scourge of that disease. They were able to go into those outdoor open spaces and enjoy some recreation. Certainly do recommend everyone to go there. They also focused quite a bit on education and expanding the imagination of people, including thousands of school children are bussed in to visit the gardens throughout the year. So they have a great deal of community outreach, particularly supporting imaginative young minds with their art programs, and really is an amazing asset for us here in this community. We just lost Jack Leonard Larson not that long ago. He was into his 90s. I think he was 92 when he passed. A statuesque figure physically, someone who could immediately be spotted within a crowd, had a sort of an aura about him. Very interesting man, and has left quite a legacy. The reserve has a number of well-known artists that have contributed works to the gardens, and I'm just looking for the list of some of them. I believe it includes William de Kooning, Brian Hurt, Yoko Ono, Dale Chihuly has glass chandeliers there. The Longhouse is currently looking, since Mr. Larson has passed, to open up his residence as a living museum where people can come and visit his residence, which is also decorated with amazing textiles and collection of artwork and ceramics. That's what I have.
Wow, yes. And they also have tours, I think you could sign up for. Yeah, as you said, you go there you could go there at least 4 times a year and see everything. It's different. It's a great place. Thank you. It should be noted. Councilman Lease, you're going to do the nature. You did, or you will talk about the nature trail?
Yes, thank you. I did. I believe the East Hampton, the nature trail in East Hampton Village is pretty much a rite of passage for any youth in East Hampton and their parents. It's a wonderful place. I spent many years there. It's the main entrance is off David's Lane, just down the street from the East Hampton Presbyterian Church. In the heart of the prime acreage in the East Hampton Village lies a 24-acre village nature preserve. But let me give you a little history about this area and location. The glacier that came through over 10,000 years ago scraped the topsoil off the fields of New England and deposited on Long Island and East Hampton. The groundwater from the area then, based on the glacial remains or glacial till, from as far as north as 3 Mile Harbor, flows southward to fill Hook Pond on the village's Atlantic shore, and the runoff from springs and storms accumulates south of Main Street. It forms a strong current in the natural channel, which we call the Hook Dream. The overflow creates a swampy stretch along 50th Lane and Egypt Lanes. And the valued parts for the old 50 and Hunting farms, these wetlands provide a lush pasturage area and hot, dry weather when the grasses elsewhere were wilted and weathered. In the early 20th century, when East Hampton villages were still small enough that a single individual or family with the will and the wherewithal could exercise enormous influence over the development, East Hampton had one of those, such as Southampton had maybe Samuel Parish, and Sag Harbor maybe had the Sage family. In East Hampton, it was called the Woodhouse family, whose members are particularly women, and remembered for their impressive work, which also includes the restoration of the endowment for the library, Guildhall, and also, for the school on Main Street also, which I'm escaping me, Clinton Academy. I apologize. Thank you.
That's okay.
Confusingly, there were two Mrs. Lorenzo Woodhouses. Emma, initially, who was married to Lorenzo G., whose money was derived from the Marshall Field department store empire and funded his wife's spectacular water garden. And the other one was Mary Woodhouse, 1865 to 1961, who married the patriarch's nephew, Lorenzo E., and left more of a durable legacy, as I just described. But both of them had fearless horticultural extravagance, and still it was been stated that Mary had no match for Aunt Emma. Moving forward, it was in 1894, that Emma Woodhouse began transforming 4 swampy acres southeast of her hunting lane home, Graycroft, which it was called, into an extravagant, exotic enclave of Oriental enchantment, complete with 2 Japanese tea houses, rustic half-moon bridges, and a profusion of flowers and foliage. 1,500 irises, and the stunning garden was part, again, of the Woodhouse family estate known as Graycroft. In one of the interesting notes that I read, Samuels noted that the interest why Mary Woodhouse employed and trained professional head gardener as her guide, Emma Woodhouse was content to hire Remington H. King of Sag Harbor, a whaler and farmer turned gardener. King, the daughter of Mary King Waite, told Samuels that it took 3 men several years to shape the water channels, working with what had been no more than a mud puddle. I don't know if there's any relation to you, Hugh. After Emma's death in 1908, her heirs continued to maintain the water garden and open paths for the public. For several years in the 30s and 40s, an acting school had the use of the gardens, but even then, Mary Woodhouse saw to it that the paths were kept in good shape. According to the records of the East Hampton Garden Club, as late as 1946. Mary Woodhouse tried to educate the community about the beauty and desirability of native plants, convince everyone that once the native plants were destroyed, they could never be replaced by anything as beautiful. Mary Woodhouse eventually gave the water garden to the Garden Club of East Hampton, which she founded. And in turn, the Garden Club gave it to the village of East Hampton for a nature trail and bird sanctuary, eventually known by many as the Duck Pond. The nature trail was once a magnificent private garden, as I mentioned, and a small garden and surrounds were open to the public in the 1940s. The adjacent 16 acres were eventually donated to the village by generous neighbors surrounding the Woodhouse Garden. And today the nature trail encompasses nearly 24 acres and are home to many paths, a myriad of benches, 25 charming wood footbridges, and a much beloved shrine to St. Francis, who I had to go look up, who was again associated with the patronage of animals in the natural environment. The LVIS is a proud supporter of this location, and along with the Garden Club, they recommend not serving bread to the ducks, everyone. As my 5-year-old knows, sliced grapes on their cracked corn and bird food only, and please keep it in the water. I got this with input of members of the LVIS and the Garden Club. I do have to give everyone one of my earliest memories. My sister, if she's watching, she fell in it one time. Very, very young.
All by herself, Dave?
She slipped into it. We were probably with my mom, and we were feeding the ducks, and she almost fell and went through the culvert because that's
Oh,
a pretty good,
Oh my God.
pretty good stream down there. And it's one of my earliest memories. Sorry, Diana. I love it. Had to tell her. But that's it. It's a beautiful place to walk, and it's something that all in East Hampton should be proud of having. And I thank you to the village for upkeep and to the Woodhouses for their lasting legacy in the town of East Hampton.
Hey, David, it's Matt Lowndes. You said you wanted me to share those photos quickly, so
Oh
the
yes,
viewers
thank
can
you very
see
much.
it. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt Lowndes, Penn State graduate. Game tonight, 6:30. Yes, I got.
Game tonight.
I had to get that in there.
Plug it.
I have two pictures actually that I got from the East Hampton Library. Go ahead, Matt Lowndes, if you want to show them of postcards initially of the Woodhouse Gardens. Please, Matt.
While he's doing that, when Joe and I got married in 1996, we had pictures taken
Oh, yeah.
at the nature trail.
Yeah. It's a spectacular place. Yeah, go ahead, Matt. If you could put them up, that'd be great.
Yeah, they're on the screen for the viewers at home.
Oh, thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
And the viewers here, you just have to trust us.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Now we go to the Garden Club of East Hampton, Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Okay, so the Garden Club of East Hampton was founded on August 25th, 1914 by a group of 40 local women with a passion for gardening and educating others on the benefits of the hobby. By June of 1915, the club accepted an invitation to become an official member of the Garden Club of America. And here I have the first pamphlet that they produced in 1915, which was their first season. And it lists their officers, which were Mary L. Kennedy Woodhouse as president, Elizabeth Lockwood as vice president, Harriet Holster as secretary, and Margaret Potter as treasurer. The first meeting was held on June 8th at the residence of Mary L. Kennedy Woodhouse, where Maurice Field gave a lecture on perennial plants. 2 weeks later, on June 22nd, the group met to discuss roses at Blanche Benjamin McAlpin's residence. On July 13th, the club met again to hear garden designer and Garden Club of America recommended lecturer Lillian C. Alderson read her paper on the color schemes in the herbaceous border and flowering scrubs, and prizes were given out for the best sweet peas. One of the events listed in the program is the club's first flower show planned for July 23rd, but for unknown reasons, the date of the show was moved to August 13th. On the rescheduled show date, the East Hampton Star reported the cancellation of the Garden Club's flower show at the East Hampton Library due to the damage caused by recent storms to the flowers. As a result, the Garden Club's 1916 flower show at the residence of East Hampton suffragist May Groot Manson is considered the club's first flower show. I also found the pamphlet from the 1916 flower show. I mean, it's just incredible, Hugh, when you go on the library's digital archives, there was probably about 275 entries that for the Garden Club, and I went through pages and pages of them. So through the years, the Garden Club of East Hampton has worked closely with the village board to preserve our area, both visually and environmentally. 2 of their members gave over 25 acres in the middle of East Hampton to remain forever as an open space of beauty, which I'm guessing is the properties that my colleagues spoke about. And in one of the documents, I found the highlights of the half century, 1914 to 1964. And the Garden Club of East Hampton stated, "We have waged war to prevent billboards, too much blacktop, mosquitoes, tent caterpillars, ragweed, poison ivy, Dutch elm disease, Japanese beetles, abuse of poison sprays, gas stations and neon signs on Main Street, vanishing hedgerows, loss of topsoil and wetlands, pollution, litter, and vandalism. We have waged war to encourage protection of wildlife, birds, animals, and fish, protection of wildflowers, cover crops, care of our nature trail and bird sanctuary, fire control over woodlands, planting of public buildings and railroad station, replanting after hurricanes, village zoning, cooperation with high school teachers, pupils, and Boy Scouts, and cooperation with all civic groups." So they continued to contribute. You know, they celebrated their 100 years. I guess what?
Last year.
Yeah. No, it would have been
Last year,
it was their first season was 1915. They were founded in 1914, so 2014. So yeah, so it was a really interesting assignment, and I appreciate it, Hugh.
Well, I appreciate all the work that you have done to find this information. And do you know when Home Sweet Home was bought by the village in 1927, the garden club took over planting trees and shrubs on the property. They took that upon themselves to do that. Okay, now the next time I come, I'm going to be there and I'm going to talk about two events. The Mulford Farm Festival, which is going to be on October 1st on the grounds of the Mulford House and Barn, and then the Herrick Park Fair the same day on Herrick Park. Now, I'll be telling you what events are going to take place, okay?
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hugh. It's great
That
to
means
see
we
you.
have no homework. Is that what you're telling us?
No homework except for Councilwoman Overby.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Hugh.
Thanks,
Be well.
Hugh.
Thank you for doing all that work. It's very nice.
That brings us up to public hearings. Carol, if you'd please read the first public hearing notice.
The public hearings will be held live and in person by the town board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV, Channel 22, and available for live stream on the LTV website. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoings may do so in person or by agent, by attorney, or by teleconference to the live meeting, or by written comment addressed to the East Hampton Town Clerk, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton. Comments may also be submitted to the town clerk by email to cbrennan@ehamptonny.gov. All comments must be received by the town clerk by the date and time of the public hearing. Please check the meeting agenda posted on the town's website for any changes or for updated information. Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 1st, 2 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider comments of all persons on the proposed draft management plan for the Carl Fisher House Historic Site, Suffolk County Tax Map 319-1-7.6. The full text of the management plan is available for inspection on the town's website.
Thank you, Carol. We have Scott Wilson in the waiting room.
Yep, putting him in right now.
Scott's our Director of Land Management. He's going to give us a brief overview.
Sure.
Welcome, Scott.
Thank you for inviting me. Let's see if I can share my screen or one of my many screens here. This one. So we're here to talk about the Carl Fisher House Historic Site Management Plan. The plan has actually been available on the town's website and the town clerk's office for a few weeks now. After receiving a local historic landmark designation, the town acquired the Carl Fisher House property from the Aiken family in December of 21. It's been very helpful actually to work with the Montauk Historical Society, who currently holds a short-term license agreement to help jumpstart the working plans for future uses and building code compliance for a museum use. Prior to consideration of a long-term license agreement, it's important for the town to review and adopt a management plan for the property as a whole to help guide the long-term use, management, maintenance of the property, and any associated structures. The current draft is dated 8/2/22, which is the same day this was actually presented at a town board work session, at which the town board suggested several small changes that included pagination, a modification to the section on access, additional restrictions on vaping, smoking, and alcohol, and a small modification to the goals and objectives section. So all of that was accomplished and changed and actually re-released on the town's website that same day, 8/2/22. The plans that we actually create follow a standard format that we use for all of our management plans, which are introduction, a description of the site, access and parking, management goals and issues, recommended improvements, permitted uses, and restrictions. The Property Management Committee had reviewed, revised, and recommended moving the plan forward to the work session. And this public hearing is being the next step in that process. So with your indulgence, I'll just read a small snippet of the goals and objectives section of that plan. The primary goal of this property is preservation and protection of its historic structures as well as its beautiful grounds for the use and enjoyment of the public. To this end, a key goal would be the creation of a dynamic museum in the main house that would bring to life the tumultuous decades of the 20s and 30s in Montauk, the era in which Carl Fisher reimagined the hamlet as the Miami Beach of the North and went all out to build it. These 20 years took us from Prohibition, local rum running in the roaring 20s, to the stock market crash, depression, devastating hurricane of 38, and the rumblings of a world war. Everything that was happening in the wider world was reflected right here in Montauk. And Carl Fisher, who came here in the 20s brimming with optimism and left in the 30s bankrupt, provides the perfect lens through which to understand the vicissitudes of the era. I've actually been to these buildings a number of times, even played pool with one of your councilmen, David Lease, on the table there. And what a wonderful opportunity to actually bring this property back to life and open it up to the public. Further details on the use, modernization regarding fire code ADA compliance would actually be discussed within a license agreement. This management plan that we're considering right now is just more of a broad stroke use and management, giving an understanding to both the user and future town board members and persons who would actually have to manage and monitor this property. So that will be followed by engineering, building plans, historic consultants, and RFPs. So I'm here if the board has any future or further changes, modifications, or answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Scott. We have one person signed up to speak public comment on this particular hearing, David Buddha, and then I'll take by show of hands, or if there's anyone on the phone lines who wishes to address the board on this topic, we'll go to them next. Good afternoon, David.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you. First, I would like to again put in a plug for a request for the town board and town clerk better facilitating access to relevant documents concerning public hearings. I would think actually the more appropriate place, rather than simply making a reference, as was done in the legal notice, that the full text of the management plan is available for inspection on the town's website, and then leave it to the interested party to figure out whether it's on the land management department site, whether it's on the work session site when it was discussed. Probably the best place to do this sort of public disclosure and public access for documents would be through the town clerk site or the town board meeting portal, where there is a place for a listing of upcoming, for the publication or republication of the public notices. And right then and there would be a place where you could reference the particular place on the town's website where the relevant documents can currently be found. I found a copy that was before the minor revisions. I'm sure that other people that might be interested might have some difficulty using the town website search engine to locate this document. And it really should be available, just like we try to have the public notice in the town board meeting portal website. It really should be developed and kept up to date.
Can I just say, since you've brought the matter up, if you just simply type Carl Fisher house or Carl Fisher into the search on the town website, the management plan comes up.
Okay, and if you...
It's very easy to access. So if anybody's really interested in finding any of these documents, go right to the search, type in the search keywords, and click search, and you will quickly find most anything.
Knowing which are the right keywords for a particular topic may not be...
Carl Fisher would be the right one in this case.
Well, you could try historic site. You could try a lot of words and come up with the wrong thing. But I'll try it and we'll see how it comes out.
Give it a try.
Now, as far as this management plan, I realize that a lot of the details will be left to the creation of a licensing agreement. But I do have one focus that I'm a little concerned about. I think that the management plan should better put restrictions on the potential uses of the annex property. The annex property, which is not part of the intended museum use, the dynamic museum would be established, of course, in the main house that Fisher resided in. But there is a substantial 4 or 5 bedroom house that's described as being recently or relatively recently rehabilitated because there was a fire. There are 4 or 5 bedrooms with ensuite ensuite bedrooms. The annex, which was once a 5-car garage with guest housing, has been remodeled to include a generous living room, kitchen, and 5 bedrooms with ensuite bathrooms. I think the management plan should say something a little bit more than what it does say. I'll read what it does say. It says that in order to support the care of the property, the annex could be used for housing those employees of the nonprofit who are involved in the stewardship of the Fisher House, as well as occasional visiting scholars and lectures. That's fine all as far as it goes. But I think that there should be some concern on the part of the town board as to what this house, which will not be part of the museum or historic uses of the property, should not be used for, being that it is a CPF-owned property that is tax exempt. It's a substantial, it appears to be quite relatively renovated, substantial, certainly more than the needs of a single caretaker. So I think there should be some restrictions on what can't be done. It shouldn't be used as a rental property. It shouldn't be used for something else other than what is listed in the management plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Is there anyone else here who wishes to address the board on this particular public hearing?
Motion to close.
Well, can we go to the phones? Matt, do we have any callers on the line?
Yeah, we have 3 callers. I'm not sure if this is the topic.
Check with those 3 callers to see if they wish to comment on the Carl Fisher management plan.
Caller 2070, is this the topic you'd like to talk about?
No, thank you.
Matt, if you could just ask what topic, so that way we don't have to go through the line each time there's a public hearing.
Caller 2070, which topic would you like to talk about later?
Been noticed for public hearing on stop signs in certain intersections in Wainscott.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Caller 5946, is this the topic you would like to talk on? If not, what is?
No, the same topic as the prior caller, the stop sign in Wainscott, Town Line Beach.
And caller 8001, is this the topic you would like to talk about?
No, stop signs as well.
Thank you.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried.
for public hearing number 2, I'll recuse myself.
Thank you. Carol, if you'd read the second public hearing notice, please.
Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 1st, 2 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider comments of all persons with regard to awarding a total of $83,350 in grant funding for one water quality improvement project. The project is at 177 Main Street LLC, the Main Street Tavern.
Thank you, Carol. Is Melissa Winslow in the waiting room?
No, I do not have anyone
Okay.
in the waiting
All
room.
right, thank you. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak as to this public hearing? Do we have any new callers on the line?
No.
I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Carol, if you please read the third public hearing notice.
Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 1st at 2 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider comments of all people with regard to a proposed local law entitled a local law amending 255 zoning to remove section 255-111M personal wireless service facilities, to amend section 255-120 definitions, to amend section 255-130A building permits required, to amend section 255-141 pre-existing personal wireless services facilities and unpermitted facilities, to remove section 255-145 unacceptable applications for personal wireless service facilities, to amend section 255-211 specification of land use district for personal wireless service facilities, to remove section 255-280 tiered permit process, to remove section 255-290 location standards, to add section 255-443F exceptions to setbacks, to amend section 255-550 standards and safeguards, to amend section 255-630 applicability, to remove section 255-641 disposition of personal wireless service facility site plans, to amend section 255-645 minor site plans, to remove section 255-651 necessary elements of site plan application for personal wireless service facilities, to remove section 255-652 modifications, to remove section 255-940 staff reports, and to add section 255-1110 use tables, commercial 255 attachment 3 personal wireless service facilities.
Thank you, Carol. We have Eric Shantz, our Senior Planning Department Planner, to give a brief introduction. Good afternoon, Eric.
Hello, Eric Shantz from the Planning Department. So I just want to go over briefly the goals of these code changes. First of all, there's a lot of them. As you could tell, Carol had her reading test for the day. They're reading one of the longest public hearing notices for code changes you've probably ever heard. The code changes themselves actually fill up 46 pages of that notice. So, but there's really 3 goals here. First is to modernize our code. As you know, it was last updated in 2002. Since that time, federal regulations have changed. As we all know, technology has changed and community need has changed. We need more coverage out here. The second main goal is to empower the town. We want to maintain standards for new facilities, but those also must be enforceable standards, and they also must reflect the community concerns. As you remember, there was a poll done to the community regarding cell coverage, excuse me, in 2021. The third goal is to promote efficiency of review. First of all, what we did was we consolidated the code into a few sections. Currently, there's 25 different code sections that cover wireless. We also made it easier for carriers and town staff to review new applications. And we're also looking to expedite review of applications that are minor changes, swap outs, things of that sort, things that go to the planning board right now when really everybody wonders why. A swap out of equipment and an existing facility is not something that should have a full review in front of a planning board. It's something that the planning department and Cityscape, the wireless consultants, can easily handle. And that promotes efficiency and also helps us meet federal timelines. So really, again, there's a lot here. This was an exhaustive effort by my department and Cityscape to basically totally revamp all the wireless sections of the code. And again, we're seeking to modernize, empower the town, maintain our standards, and promote efficiency of review. Again, there's a lot in here. So if anyone has any questions about it, I'll be glad to answer them. Obviously, this is public hearing, so I'm not sure how necessary that will be, but I'll be here for anything that the board or anyone else has.
Great. Thank you, Eric. David Buda, you've signed up to speak.
Yes, I applaud the town's staff, Mr. Shantz, particularly his effort to modernize and coordinate and to simplify the process. I do, again, think that there's a lot of devil in the details that people who might be interested in would be interested in reading, well, if there's insomniacs perhaps, but it would facilitate the public discourse if the town board meeting portal, where the agendas are located, would have specific reference to where one could find the text of the proposed legislative changes, which of course occurred when the resolution was introduced 2 or 3 weeks ago. So a reference to a specific place that you could find the text in the meeting board, town meeting portal would be a useful thing, either under the agenda or under the separate section where notices of public hearings are listed, although not always currently listed. I have one thing that I found that I wanted to discuss. Actually, two. One is the welcome advent of the small cell systems that a company like Extenet, and I'm sure there are others in the field, are currently installing in places such as Napeague, Montauk, and the State Park. People, if you drive down Napeague on the state highway, you'll see them on top of the telephone poles. These small cells, by federal regulation, cannot exceed 50 feet in height. I don't know if any or all of them are fully operational. I haven't been to Montauk this summer. I try to avoid it like the plague during the summer, but I'll go there right after Tumbleweed Tuesday. I would hope that the town, I appreciate that they're really only appropriate for cell phones, so it's not something the town would be involved in. It's not something appropriate for emergency communications. So it's not really a town issue. It's really a matter of the private entities that provide cell coverage taking advantage of the opportunities to put in small cells on top of existing utility poles or new utility poles. And I can certainly see a place like the Springs being well serviced for better and supplemental cell phone service by having such features, such facilities up 3 Mile Harbor, Hog Creek Road, and up and down Springs Fireplace Road. They are not obtrusive. Again, that's something that I would hope this code changes will facilitate and encourage. The second thing is an area of concern. It has to do with the other end of the spectrum, the tier 3 macro sites. The biggest change in this document is the change from a 2 times fall zone requirement from habitable structures to a universal 1 times fall zone from the property line, the setback. And there's one section here that I think needs to be further expanded upon, and that's, it looks like it's 255, 141, down in 11, where the setback requirement for tier 3 is stated in subparagraph A, new wireless structures shall have a setback equal to the height of the proposed structure. That's fine. But what I heard Mr. Shantz say at the presentation of this to the town board on June 21st was that the setback would be from all structures. Now, I can appreciate that we're not going to be too concerned about damage that could be done from falling parts of a macro site, damage that might be done to the actual installation, the service cabinets that are used. But if there is another structure within the height of the tower, such as there is right across the way, the town justice court is very close to a macro tower that is very fully loaded. I would think that your setback requirement should specify not just 1 times the height from a property line, but as Mr. Shantz said when he presented this to you, from structures which I interpret to mean habitable structures. That seems to have been omitted. I think the town and the zoning code should be concerned about putting any macro tower within 1 times the height of the tower from any habitable structure, whether it be a structure at a Girl Scout camp, whether it be the Justice Court, whether it be the Springs Fire Department building. So that's one thing that I'd like to comment on.
So I understand that would assume that any structure in this scenario would actually be within the property that the cell tower was proposed or being built on. Because if the fall zone is to the property line, then you're saying additionally anything within the property line.
The setback
right.
is...
It seems to be a moot point unless you're talking about a structure that's on the property.
Yes, a structure that's on the property,
right.
such as I mentioned several towers where there are structures on those properties.
It would be up to the person or entity that has the structure on the property that's also giving the permission for the cell tower. It'd be at their discretion as to whether or not they were concerned about their own structure being at risk, right?
Right. Well, I would think that, if the town were to ever,
Just want to be clear on that because people might not understand that with the property line situation, it's not going to impact somebody off of the property. It would only be a structure that conceivably would be on the property, which could be a utility cabinet for the structure itself.
well, let's maybe make this clear, because it says that the setback requirement for new wireless structures of tier 3 shall have a setback equal to the height of the proposed structure. And you don't measure that setback from the property line, you measure it from the tower. So there can't be anything within the height structure within that. Well, I'm not sure what it means. Maybe it's just unclear whether you're measuring it from the property line, whether you're measuring it from, whether you're excluding structures that are within the property, which is what you seem to be saying, or whether you're including those. Maybe it just needs to be clarified because it could be read different ways. Setback from what? The word setback is usually meant to refer to a setback from a particular feature in all directions. And here you're assuming that you're excluding your own facility if you're promoting a tower. And I would hope that if the town were to ever remove the tower that is there and replace it in a different location on the town property, that you would not put it within that 1 times the height of any other structure, whether it be a court or town board, town meeting.
I understand your point, David. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board on this matter? Matt, do we have any new callers that maybe want to address the town board on this matter?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. Carol, if you please read the 4th hearing notice for today.
Please take notice that the town board hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on September 1, 2 p.m. or soon thereafter as this matter may be heard at East Hampton Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, to hear any and all persons with regard to a local law entitled, a local law providing for the amendment of Chapter 240, Vehicles and Traffic, to amend Section 240-61, Schedule 9, parking prohibited at all times, to prohibit parking along a section of the easterly side of Town Line Road in Waynescott at its southern terminus.
Can we combine the hearings of the stop signs and parking for Town Line Road?
I can make a motion for that. If the board would like, I'd like to make a motion to combine the public hearings of public hearing number 4, 5, and 5.
Second.
Carol, if you'd read the public hearing notice for hearing 5 as well.
Please take notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on Thursday, September 1st at 2 p.m. or soon thereafter as this matter may be heard at East Hampton Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, to hear any and all persons with regard to a local law entitled, a local law providing for the amendment of Chapter 240, Vehicles and Traffic, Section 240-58, Schedule 8, Stop Intersections of the East Hampton Town Code, to provide for stop signs to be installed at certain intersections in Waynescott.
Thank you very much, Carol. We have a number of people here signed up for this public hearing. The first one is Dennis DeAndrea. And again, we're combining the no parking and the stop signs on Town Line Road.
Hey, I'm Dennis DeAndrea from Waynescott. I'm on the Waynescott Citizens Advisory Committee, but not representing them today. I'm here, as an individual. This would be choppy because I'm going to cut out half of it on the fly for your convenience, because you'll, being here, hearing it again. About 20 years ago, I wanted to have a stop sign placed on the southeast corner of Main Street and Town Line Road. And in any event, at the time, the town highway supervisor was, I think, Scott King. And he was sort of the person I was complaining to, and was a very nice guy, and he says, well, rather than you try and explain to me the dynamics of an intersection, why don't we just park like 20 yards away from it and, and just observe, for an hour or so. Which reminds me, East Hampton is lucky. We've had highway supervisors like Steve Lynch, Scott King, Chris Russo. For some reason, we've always gotten, really good highway supervisors here, and bless them. So anyway, Scott and I are at the intersection watching. And one thing we learned that Sunday afternoon drivers do not touch turn signals. Okay. So anyway, we observed, and through that, Scott King, the highway supervisor, came out in favor of putting up a stop sign there. And okay. Well, in any event, the timing was terrible. This was 20 years ago. Peter Van Scoyac has given us the blessing of a AAA, bonding budget, which is a gift to the town. Back then we had somebody named McGinty, I think it was. He was a town supervisor. I think he's a former policeman. But anyway, he was the town supervisor. He didn't have a AAA bond rating. I think he's probably a double E. And I'm not far from the truth. And so the approach for the town board, given their situation, was to never spend any money on anything, anytime, anywhere. So the stop sign just disappeared. Anyway, the stop sign had disappeared. We were told that the reason we weren't going to get the stop sign was because stop signs shouldn't be used for traffic calming, whatever that is. So anyway, 20 years have gone by, and we've never had the stop sign. And let me see, there's a lot of technicalities about an intersection, which I won't get into because I'm sure one of my cohorts or colleagues here can make it sound very clear and easy. Okay. And one other thing, my wife Barbara and I volunteered to pay for the stop sign. I mean, how much can a stop sign cost? So we volunteered to pay for the stop sign and the labor, just to get it there. And but I guess it was such an odd idea to have a citizen, make a highway improvement that just never went anywhere. And let me just close with saying that I think the stop signs are important, and we should be reviewing that concern every 20 years. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate your comments. Liz Hedges. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you very much. I didn't hear all that Dennis said, but I'm going to add that I think stop signs are very important too. I don't think they're going to solve our traffic problems. I'm not going there, but with the increased traffic congestion, an increased speed of the traffic in our community, little things hopefully can make a difference, and it may be stop signs. We live at the northwest corner of Town Line Road and Parsonage, And although we technically are the town of Southampton, for many, many years, most of the history of our family at that corner, we were the village of Sagaponack, or Wainscott, I'm sorry. But things have changed. That's one of the things that's changed. Anyway, we've had a chance to experience pedestrians, bicycles, strollers, cars, trucks, motorcycles through the intersection during different times of the day and during different seasons of the year. Our primary concern is safety and accident prevention. Among those concerns, and first and foremost, is the speed. The speed of the traffic heading north and south on Town Line Road. We do our own mowing and hedge trimming. We're at the edge of the road often. We have a building that doesn't probably meet anybody's town code that's very close to the edge of the road at that corner. We go in and out. The second concern that we have is that as you come down that road, one of the big changes that I would note is the loss of visibility. The hedges are probably, I don't think, unnecessarily on town right away, but they all impede your ability to see traffic coming from either direction. And with regard to impediments, as a pedestrian, often walking back and forth to the beach, it's not such a problem during the day, but stones, little fences that remain on town property. I've caught my bicycle wheels in the little rope fences. I've tripped on the stones. It's more of an issue in the dark. And then there's that undefinable issue of using neighborhood streets as a bypass to the congestion on 27. Now, Hedges Lane and Parsonage Lane are obviously an issue that I need to address with the town of Southampton, but both of those streets feed directly into Main Street going through the village of Wainscott. And having worked the rummage sale at the Wainscott Sewing Society a couple of weeks ago, it'd be quite a good wait to get across the street on a Saturday afternoon in the village of Wainscott, trying to cross Main Street. And I don't have the speed radar or the speed gun, but I'm quite certain that it wasn't 30 miles an hour, or with a lot of people standing outside, most responsible drivers would reduce their speed a bit. We didn't see that. If I knew the answer to traffic congestion in the Hamptons, I would be on your side of the bench and I wouldn't be standing here expressing my concern. With regard to personal concerns, we have farm equipment that move on and off our property in places where people don't expect it. They're not driveways. Enough said. It makes it harder with the landscaping trucks that park along Town Line Road. You forcing people onto, because the town, on our particular property, the town right-of-way is really narrow. In fact, our property line extends into the pavement of Town Line Road. And we have hedgerows along the edge of the property, and we don't mow them, but the town of Southampton does. But it's not pedestrian friendly, it's not bicycle friendly. There's a long stretch of Town Line Road, certainly on the west side, that isn't available to get off the road in the event of traffic. I think the last thing is, I'm an early riser. I'm out walking the dogs. My neighbor rides her bicycle early in the morning. It's just, it's daybreak. The trucks. This is not especially new this year. As much of the construction now in Sagaponack and Wainscott is kind of completed. There's not so much open land available anymore. So we don't see quite so much, but they travel, the cement trucks, these roads were not built for highway traffic and highway speeds. So, not that I want to comment particularly on my own personal driving, but going up and down Town Line Road, I've made a commitment to myself that I will recognize it as my neighborhood and I will observe the speed limit. I don't want to trigger any road rage, but it's very hard to avoid those people who would like to hang on to your bumper or pass you on the yellow lines. It's anything that you can do to promote safety in our neighborhood streets, to reduce the speed. I know in my memory, the speed was 40 miles an hour in there, and there were very few cars traveling up and down those roads. And I could stand and listen to Doug Strong talk about how the traffic's such a problem. But it's all changed. It's really changed big time in our neighborhood. And I'm hoping that little things will make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Appreciate you taking the time to come in and give us your comments. Thank you. We appreciate your comments today.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to come in. Next up, Carolyn Logan Gluck.
Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Logan Gluck, Chair of the Wayne Scott Citizens Advisory Committee, and nice to see you. Thank you for entertaining my comments. I wanted to read the letter that we sent to you into the public record. So this is for you, the town board. Thank you for sharing the planning department's July 29th memo and map that addressed the speeding and safety issues along Town Line Road. The Wayne Scott Citizens Advisory Committee views the planning board's recommendations positively and is pleased to see the town is addressing this important subject without delay. At its August 6th meeting, the WCAC reviewed these and formulated the following recommendations. 3, not 4. 3 stop signs should be added along the eastern, that's to say the East Hampton town side of Town Line Road at the following intersections: Daniels Lane, Wayne Scott Main Street, and Parsonage Lane, so not at Hedges. A stop sign at the Hedges Lane intersection may not be necessary as this is so close to Main Street. The town should coordinate with Southampton to establish a 3-way stop at each of these 3 recommended intersections, and I understand you're in the process of doing so. The CAC is not in favor of the addition of a sidewalk. So thank you very much for your attention to this matter, and I just wanted to add on speaking for myself, I really benefit from talking to my friends and neighbors, and the addition of stop signs is not without its pros and cons, and people who live adjacent to where new stop signs would be installed would be affected by traffic stopping and starting up again. And I've seen other documentation that questions the effectiveness of stop signs as a speed control measure. But just on the basis of my own personal experience driving along that stretch of Town Line a lot, because I live on Sayers and I shop at King Cullen, that it seems to make good practical sense to have 3-way stops at those intersections we named, because too often cars will glide across the lane where traffic comes in the opposite direction onto the lane where they want to go. And cars have already nosed out because of poor sight lines. It just makes sense to have all people coming to those intersections stop, or at least come to a rolling stop, look, and then proceed. So thank you again very much for your attention and careful consideration to this matter.
Thank you, Carolyn. Jose Arandia.
Good afternoon, all. Jose Arandia, citizen, town of Wayne Scott, and I'm here to talk about the Town Line Road challenges that we have. First of all, I'd like to say that I wholeheartedly support the the stop signs that are planned or proposed for this road. We have for many years seen traffic increase and speed increase on these roads with a concern for safety for the public as well as for the vehicles. So I think it's quite necessary that we establish these three-way stop signs, both on the borderline between East Hampton and Southampton. It'll be a safety issue for not only life, but for the vehicular traffic as well. So continuing on Town Line Road, one of my favorite roads in town, is down to the beach. Here again, I support the fact that we should try and eliminate some of the parking at the very end of Town Line Beach and the road. And the beach itself. I myself experience a lot of difficulty in getting down to that end of the beach and being able to turn around to make sure that my parking is on the Wainscott side or the East Hampton side and facing in the correct direction. They have seen most recently this summer a frequent number of people who park haphazardly, I'll say, and in the opposite direction, without any kind of recourse coming. I understand that we have many issues in town that we have to take care of, and parking isn't the top one. But when no one is held to account for things that are done not in accordance with what's established, other people will start to mimic those same behaviors, and that will only lead to a more challenging situation. So again, I support the removal of parking at the very end of Town Line Road, where we have a adequate space to turn around. The last thing I'd like to talk about is, again, the coming back to the stop signs, because apart from the safety measure that it will provide, it will also provide a speed modification. I know that some people or some reports and some studies have shown that it doesn't modify the speed as much as we'd like. I do believe it will have a speed modification effect simply because you have to make the stop. This summer, I've had any number of people tailgating me because I, like Ms. Hedges here, am adhering to the speed limit in the town of Wainscott. And I'm just flabbergasted at how many people are right on my tail when they know that the speed limit sign says 30. And when they're that close that I can see their eyes and they can see mine in my rearview mirror, I point to the sign when I go by. I say, that's what you should be doing. But again, many people are not locals, and they see this as their bypass on the weekend to avoid the traffic. So in recap, everything that was being presented for Town Line Road, I'm in full support of. I think it'll help the town of East Hampton, and it'll certainly help the village of Wainscott. And I'd like to just add my wholehearted support for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to speak on this matter? Can I go to the phone lines now? I think we have at least 3 callers that we're on.
I think the woman in the front wanted to speak.
No, she wants to speak on something else.
All right. Yeah.
Comment.
Caller 8001, you were the first caller. You are unmuted.
Yes, this is Mr. McMillan. I actually live off Town Line Road on Hedges, and I just want to tell you that we have been in discussions at the village level of Sagaponack looking at traffic issues, and there are things in the works being done. I do want to mention to Liz Hedges that she should get in touch with the village of Sagaponack and Bill explicitly, our new mayor, who is actively involved in this. I'm on the call to tell you that we are 100% supportive of the stop signs. We're looking at the bigger issue of traffic coming across Hedges, Parsonage, and Daniels onto the Wainscott Main as kind of a thoroughway or an entry gateway to East Hampton away from 27. We are thinking of different ideas and thoughts, anything from speed tables to stop signs. And I know that on your side of Town Line Road is your purview of putting in stop signs. I just want to let you know, and I can speak on behalf of the village and the trustees, they're 100% supportive. We had this discussion literally last week. So on our side of Town Line, we will contemplate potentially putting in a stop sign on Wayne-Scott, Maine as well to make it a 3-stop. But I do want you to coordinate with the Village of Sagaponack. My understanding is the village has the purview to make these decisions, not Southampton. And there's, I think, other people potentially on this call that are part of the village, and just want to reiterate our support 100%. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much for calling. I did meet with Mayor Tillotson back in July and the Deputy Mayor Thayer as well to coordinate this effort, because we recognize the fact that we share that road with the Sagaponack Village. They're the municipality with authority on the west side of the road. And so we're very happy that that's been a very cooperative and productive exchange. And we all want to do what we can to improve traffic safety on that road and other roads throughout our respective municipalities. So thank you very much for taking the time to call in.
Yeah, just one more thing in addition. As you all know, that the new state rules allow all villages now to have consistent speeding down to 25 miles per hour. And Town Line is 30. I think that should be a high consideration, putting it down to 25.
Yes, and actually, I think villages under state law are allowed to go down as low as 20. And towns recently, as you mentioned, have gained authority to go as low as 25, and that would be something we will also take a look at. Thank you for calling, Mr. McMillan. We go to the next caller, Matt.
Caller 2070, you are on the air.
Yes, hi. My name is Jason Barefoot. I'm calling from East Hampton. First, I want to recognize and appreciate the time that the council has given me to speak. I know this is about the stop signs on Town Line Road, but I would like to ask if there are any considerations for traffic calming devices along Stephen Hand's path. There have been a number of incidents recently culminating in a head-on collision just a few weeks ago that severely injured both parties along that road, and any kind of traffic calming devices along that area, specifically at the intersection of Stephen Hand's Path and Two Holes of Water Road, I think would be greatly appreciated by the residents in that area.
Yeah, Jason, we're actually working on putting together a plan for a roundabout at that location. Those plans are underway. Okay. And recently the connection of Stephen Hand's to Old Northwest Road, Cedar Street, the superintendent of highways realigned that to make it a right angle stop instead of a very acute angle, which will also separate traffic out and improve safety there. But being someone who drives that regularly, Two Holes of Water to Stephen Hand's Path, I know exactly how dangerous and how much traffic volume there is. There's sightline issues as well, and the board has discussed this, and we're moving ahead with drawing up plans for a roundabout at that location.
That's fantastic. Is there any timeline on those plans?
So we have the drainage improvements, which are going to be underway first, but the actual development of the plan is underway. So as soon as we get the plans back from engineering, we'll share that in a public discussion at our work session upcoming. I don't have the exact timeline as to when those plans are expected, but I would think certainly this fall.
Okay. I understand. Thank you.
Thanks for calling. Jason, I'm sorry, Matt, if you could go to the next caller, please.
Yeah, the next two callers are new callers. Not sure if this is the topic they would like to talk about, but caller 7888, you are on the air. Is this the topic you would like to talk about?
Yes, it is. Hi, Hi, my name is Susan Macy, and I'm a full-time resident of Waynescott. And I'd like to read the letter I sent to the town board regarding the proposal to add stop signs and to restrict parking at the beach end of Town Line Road. Dear Supervisor Von Scoyoc and members of the town board, as a longtime resident of Town Line Road in Waynescott, I want to thank you for considering the proposal to add stop signs on Town Line Road at the intersections of Daniels Lane, Waynescott Main Street, Hedges Lane, and Parsonage Lane to help slow traffic from the beach north to Route 27. I understand Sagaponack Village is also considering the same at these locations going south. This would create a three-way stop at each intersection. I would also like to thank you for proposing to keep an area at the beach end of Town Line Road clear of parked cars to help mitigate congestion and to allow room for cars and emergency vehicles to turn around. During the summer, the end of the road is littered with bicycles, shoes, wagons, and people going to and from the beach. The area is narrow and very difficult to navigate because currently there is no place to turn around except for residents' driveways. At times, this congestion is palpable. Each year I notice not only more traffic from beachgoers, maintenance trucks, and people using it as an alternative to Route 27, but also the speed at which they go. If you add in bicyclists and pedestrians, it's a recipe for disaster. I believe these two measures will help to keep everyone safer, and I encourage you to vote to implement them. Very truly yours, Susan Macy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. Appreciate you taking the time to call in and to send that letter. Matt, do we have any other callers on the line?
Only one more caller. Caller 9015. Is this the topic you would like to talk about? You are on air.
My name is Michael Hansen, and I live in Waynescott. I am speaking today as a citizen of East Hampton Town, only in no other capacity, a citizen of Waynescott. I support fully the proposed stop signs and sidewalk and parking restrictions in Town Line. I also call for further traffic calming along this alternative route that folks take, and they go down Waynescott Main and Waynescott Stone Road. And I recommend raised medians. This is an elevated island that is parallel to traffic lanes, and this has been demonstrated to slow traffic, bottom line. And finally, I just want to say that this issue, this traffic issue, is not limited to the summer season. This happens in August and it happens in February. And the issues are only different by degree. So please, I'm sure I've said that before, but let's remember this is a year-round issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate your comments. Matt, do we have any other callers on the line?
No, there's no more callers on the line.
Okay.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Carol, if you would read the 6th public hearing notice for today.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, on Thursday, September 1st at 2 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard concerning the following grant of scenic and conservation easement to the Town of East Hampton. The grantor is Godsell Development Company, LLC, to scenic and conservation easement dated June 21st of 2022 at 35 Benson Drive in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 331-9. The reviewing agency is the ZBA.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this matter? Do we have any callers on the line, Matt?
There's no callers on the line.
I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Carol, if you'd read the last public hearing notice for today, please.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, Thursday, September 1st, 2 p.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard concerning the filing grant of scenic and conservation easement to the Town of East Hampton. The grantor is GDC MTK LLC. It's a scenic and conservation easement dated June 21st, 2022 at 33 Benson Drive in Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 331-8, and the reviewing agency is the ZBA.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone wish to address the board on this matter? Matt, do we have any callers?
Yes, we have one caller on the line.
You would inquire as to whether or not they wish to speak on this scenic easement?
Caller 4221, you are on air. Is this the topic you would like to talk about?
No, Matt, I'm just jumped in for a public portion. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
All in favor?
Aye. Second, first of all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. That concludes the public hearings for today. We'll now have a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you, again, keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And I believe we have an Ellen Silverman who wishes to address the board. Welcome, Ms. Silverman.
Thank you.
Pull the mic close to you.
If you could just pull the microphone down a little bit, Ellen, so that we can all hear you.
Is this better?
If you just try to speak closer to it.
Yeah,
there you go. That should work fine. That should be fine. Thank you.
Is this okay?
That's very good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I bought my house over 20 years ago. My neighbor has accumulated a huge amount of firewood on his residential property. I called code enforcement a few months ago and spoke to Charles, who said he would go over there. A few weeks later, Charles called me and told me that he went to the said property and told me that one little spark could set off a huge fire. That this huge pile of firewood is a fire hazard and a code violation, and told me to file a complaint, which I did. Now, a few months later, I spoke to Charles, who told me the owner has a legal document which the town will review, and if it's valid, I will have to sue the owner personally, and the firewood would stay. I am indeed very disappointed that the town knows of a fire hazard and has not done anything, and it seems this may very well be the case. There is a house that's closer to the pile of firewood than mine, and there are other houses close also. My question is, should not the town be involved in having this fire hazard issue resolved, especially since they acknowledge it is in fact a code violation? Thank you very much for your attention. And
Yes,
I'm very
Ellen, if you care to contact my office later, we can follow up on your concerns, okay?
Thank you, I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wish to address the town board here? David Buddha?
Thank you again for public comment. I just want to go back to something. I know this is not the public hearing, but just to clarify, I was thinking with regard to the changes being made to the personal wireless service facilities, and this is a comment really directed to John to think about. The statement in the new legislation, new wireless structures shall have a setback equal to the height of the proposed structure, is inherently ambiguous. The current requirement is a one-time height restriction from the property line, which is the typical use of the word setback. And also there is a 2 times the height of a structure setback requirement or prohibition from any inhabited or inhabitable structure. The term setback is usually used in terms of measurements from a property line I do think that we're talking about something that could be a potential danger. It should be clarified that this setback is intended to also be a distance of the tower from habitable or inhabitable structures. And I think that is the intent, but I do think it's ambiguous in its wording. If I can just now go on to the matters of concern or interest on the today's agenda. I have some questions. I'll direct these to the sponsors of the particular legislation, particular resolutions. Resolution 1069, Deputy Supervisor Bert Gonzalez, one of the special event permits to be approved is for our friend Michael Novogratz, who in the past has invited as many as 500 of his closest friends to his family gatherings and provided music from people such as Miley Cyrus and Red Hot Chili Peppers, which has resulted in numerous complaints from residents or neighbors of that location. What I'd like to know is whether this Labor Day gathering at an East Hampton residence on this Saturday, 9/3, from 1 to 8. If you please tell me the location, the nature of the property. Is it a residential property or is it a commercial property such as a horse farm? And how many people are expected and whether there's any musical guests invited or expected?
So John, am I to give the address of the house and what is?
It's provided on the application, though, that's not right.
It is on the application, but I mean, I'm just questioning if the application is foiled. Is that redacted or is that public information?
No, that would be available.
Okay, so it's 161 Town Lane.
In East Hampton.
400 people, and there are no musical guests.
Anticipated.
I'm sorry, and
disclosed
on the application.
Okay. Next question for council person. The state has changed all the legislation. You're no longer councilman.
I don't think that's passed yet, though. It's been introduced and it was in committee.
I think it's now a law. Anyway, council person, David Lease, you have resolution 1080 to adopt a policy for temporary modular storage. I've read this, and the one thing I don't see in here, which is be of interest to people who have raised this issue and prompted this legislation, is where within the different parts of the town will such temporary storage of modular buildings be allowed overnight? How will that be specified, regulated? It's not in this resolution. So I'm just wondering how you're going to handle that.
The practice is going to be that applications are going to be accepted by the Department of Code Enforcement. Code Enforcement then will route the application to selected entities, PD, Department of Highways, Town Board, Fire Marshals also for their comments. And they'll either approve the application or not, depending on the request.
All right. I would think, though, that over time, there would be certain favorable and acceptable locations developed, and people would want to know where those are.
Those are already known to the town board because it's not a new practice. But what we want to ensure is that the various entities within town government are aware that they've reviewed it as the appropriateness, and there are some things that have come up over time that are problematic. The idling of diesel motors near residences, the
hours,
keeping up that it's mostly hours. And of course, wide loads generally are shipped during the night hours because they're not permitted on the roadways during days, especially bridge crossings, particularly. But there are, depending on time of year, different locations. For instance, the Amagansett Beach parking lot in the off season is away from most residences and might be a location. CDCH building, Stephen Hand Path ball fields over by Sport Time, head of the harbor could be a location depending on what it is and when. So it's these are areas that have been used for years. We just thought it was important to have procedures in place and actually, require a permit fee as a result, rather than not have any kind of, program where people understood what they had to do and that the various entities within the town were all aware of what was going on.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Van Scoyac, with regard to resolution 1095, can you just tell me how many people are invited to attend the East End Supervisor and Mayors Association meeting that will occur in East Hampton this month.
Well, how many East End mayors and supervisors are there? I can't tell you the exact number. The fee is $1,200 for the luncheon. It's actually a couple $100 less than the last time we hosted several years ago, pre-COVID. And this is something, again, it's whoever is available. We get a head count ahead of time. Sometimes there's a support staff member will sometimes attend as well, a supervisor's chief of staff or secretary.
Okay. And lastly, again for you, Supervisor, Resolution 1099 deals with authorizing payment to the county clerk for the recording of highway dedication deeds. And this raises the question of what is the proper procedure the town should follow to ensure timely recording of documents where easements, or in this case, a highway dedication, are recorded and at whose expense. I applaud the use of a outside title agent or title closer, title person who is the best person to ensure an effective recording of such documents. But this resolution raises two questions. Since the original resolution authorizing this to occur was from 2019, I just have to wonder whether it's taken 3 years for the required recording of a highway dedication. In this case, it's a cul-de-sac on Hand Lane.
Hand Lane.
Is the name of the road.
Handy.
Handy Lane.
It shouldn't take 3 years from the time of an approval of a subdivision if there is a requirement for a dedication of a highway. And then also, every time I've seen a subdivision approved by a planning board, there should be no cost to the town to accept the dedication of a highway deed. So I'm just wondering whether something went awry, whether this is the new standard practice, and if so, I think you should avoid it because this should be done under the town's control, but at the ultimate expense of the party who's required to give to the town an easement, a dedication, et cetera.
Right. I don't have a specific answer for you. John, do you have the background on this?
I don't know if this is a bill that wasn't submitted to us and it's an old bill. I'd have to look.
So this could be the result of a bill that just wasn't paid in a timely fashion.
Right. I mean,
I'll find out.
there is a reference to an earlier resolution, and the way that was written, it did suggest that the town would pay the fees. I'm just wondering whether or not they were to be passed on to the subdivider, which
I don't have an answer for you right now, but we can look into that and get back to you.
Thank you very much.
Sure. You're welcome. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Yes, Jose.
And thank you again for your time. So this being an open session, I'd just like to reiterate and as strongly as possible recommend that we move with all due speed and forcefulness with the airport situation. The fact that there was one judge who put an injunction on something that we have spent years addressing and carefully following laws and regulations from the FAA, from the town, from the state, to have one judge make this a thorn in everyone's side, I think is a slap in the face to all of us who work towards equitable distribution of airspace and quality of life. The situation this summer with the helicopters has increased numerous fold, with helicopters arriving and taking off as early as 6:30 in the morning. So here again, we have a situation where none of the pilots are following recommended flight plans. And I think that that's always been one of our greatest challenges, that everything has been recommended and that there is no hard and fast rule as to what the pilots, whether they be of planes or helicopters, need to do. So again, I just encourage the board to do what is necessary with all due haste, with internal and external legal resources to make this come to a head, a fruition of either accepting the rules and regulations or of closing the airport down. We have a lot of options and a lot of needs in this town that parcel can be used for. So that's on the airport. The other one is a topic that has come up in various town board meetings. And that has to do with the potential increase in the actual square footage of affordable/accessory housing, which currently stands at 600 square feet. So here again, I encourage the board to address that issue in as quickly and timely manner as possible. There are any number of people who would benefit from that, and we do have a need in this town for affordable accessory housing. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jose. Yes, Carolyn.
Since I was here, I thought I'd just hang around a little longer.
If you just please restate.
Carolyn Gluck, Wayne
Yeah,
Scott resident.
thanks.
And I just wanted to pick up where my colleague Jose left off and circle around to the Wayne Scott Sand Pit, which, as you know, has a subdivision that's before the planning board. And I completely understand and respect the wall that exists between what you as a town board do and what the planning board is prepared to do. Nevertheless, even though that application exists and is going through the process there, I really feel that doesn't, or I really understand that that doesn't preclude you from taking active steps now, not at a future point in time, to secure the environment, our water source, our beloved pond, and also our sanity with regard to traffic, and engage with the property owners now and their council to ensure that we can have a major portion of the Wayne Scott Sand Pit dedicated to much needed open space for both passive and active recreation. I saw the photograph of the skate park in today's paper, and the sheer exuberance and joy on the face of everybody in that photograph was palpable even in a sheet of newspaper. And here you have an already cleared property that has all sorts of potential, and recreation being but one of them, which would be, I believe, much kinder to our environment and much better for our sanity. So
a Wayne Scott skate park
now.
Yeah, exactly. All you'd have to do is improve the surface. Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to address the board? Public comment. Do we have any callers on the line?
Yes, we have one caller on the line. Caller 4221. You are on the air.
I think I recognize the voice. Is that Jane Meering?
It is me. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. And I would like to say I'm very happy to see you back in your chair. You were missed, and I'm glad you look healthy and sound healthy. So, hi, September is here.
Hey, thank you very much, Jane. It's good to be back.
Okay, good. Not that everyone else didn't do a great job carrying on.
Sure.
I wanted to just say make some comments to follow up on the great clearing discussion the board has been having over the months, and specifically, I think it was back on the work session on August 16th. It was clearing and about the revegetation. So first, I know you discussed at that session whether the new fee schedules, the new fees should be higher, especially in relation to the numbers that we see in places like Southampton. And I understand that there is a preference to raise these fees more incrementally, and I get that. However, I did want to prod a bit more related to implementing a robust fine schedule. I think it was Councilman Overby who summed it up, quote, "Overclearing is an unacceptable behavior." I couldn't agree more. And I fear we won't be able to change behavior unless there are consequences, including a schedule of serious and stinging fines. Or, having listened to Councilman Lease earlier, maybe we could include a dunking in the duck pond, but I think fines are better.
Can't find my sister.
Right. Second, I spoke back at the public hearing, I think it was on April 21st, when you were going over the revision of the code amendments for staking and documenting clearing during construction. And I made a number of suggestions for other things to do. I won't repeat them here today, but I do hope you will continue to evolve all aspects of code around clearing, including relooking at the size of allowances, and to just keep the momentum going on this a topic that is so important. Lastly, on those changes that were adopted after the April 21st hearing, I actually went into eCode just to reread them. And I believe that it was 1027B1H and 1027B3. I actually did not see them in eCode. I don't know what delay there is perhaps normally between, I think you adopted them, and being able to see them and access them on eCode. But I just wanted to point out that I did not see them there. And then finally, unrelated to clearing, but while I'm on the topic of eCode, I have flagged this before. Chapter 255, not Exhibit 4, Attachment 4, which is the dimensional allowances tables. There's two versions of it, 4.1 and 4.2. I believe there is a typo in 4.2, which is how the formula for GFA is calculated. You will notice a difference between 4.1 and 4.2. It's such a crucial table, and if it is a typo on number 2, I would really urge that clerical issue to be resolved.
Yeah, in terms of eCode, sometimes that's not up. It's not updated instantaneously. So it may just be that if you can't find it, it may be just because it hasn't been an update yet.
That's what I didn't know, but I felt like you adopted it. I think back in May, right, beginning of May, you voted for it. So
it may not be in eCode yet.
Right, but so maybe there is a lag, but it's such an important thing, and I know you want to get going on it, so I just wanted to flag it to see if that can be updated. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Okay.
Any other comments? We have any other callers on the line?
No, we do not. My sister, too, fell into the town pond at some point.
My gosh, it's an epidemic.
Important information. Anybody else's family member fall in the duck pond? Okay. We can now go on with resolutions to be offered by council persons. Kathy, you have resolution?
I do. Starting with resolution 2022-1067, it's approval of the warrant. Claims total $3,098,826.65, and the utility warrant totals $48,759.93.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
2022-1068 is a list appointment to office assistant for Amy Jo Brown. This is a full-time position in the sanitation department with no change in salary effective September 4th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
1069 is approval of various special event permits. The Walk on Water annual surf therapy event at Ditch Plains, Friday, September 9th, 9 to 4, and Saturday, September 10th, 9 to 4. Montauk Friends of Erin and East Hampton Kiwanis Club Montauk Seafood Festival. This is going to be this year on the Montauk Green, Saturday, September 10th, Sunday, September 11th from 11 to 5. Event Power LLC, Mighty Man Triathlon. They'll be using the Lions soccer field, nearby parking area, and various town roads. That's Saturday, October 2nd, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the Michael Novogratz Labor Day Gathering at an East Hampton residence on Saturday, September 3rd. And that's from 1 to 8 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
1070 is a transfer from the YMCA Reserve Fund in the amount of $4,700. This is for engineering for pool starter blocks that need to be replaced. And we're working with LK McLean for the professional services here.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
1071 is to authorize engineers Nelson and Pope to evaluate an existing home located at 19 Joshua Edwards Edwards Court in East Hampton as part of the town's affordable housing program. They'll be specifically looking at the septic system and making a recommendation to the town with regard to the same. And the amount is $750.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1072 is to pay notary license fee for Nancy Marshall in the amount of $60.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1073 is to release security for Montauk Colony LLC. Suffolk County tax map is 300-32-6-14. The amount is $25,000 and the agency involved is the planning board.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1074 is Resolution 2022-1074 is a transfer from the Laura Simonson Skate Park Reserve in the amount of $58,680 for park improvements.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1075 is retain surveyor for additional work for 395 Panago. This week for Gary Benz to put 2-foot contours and a curb cut on the survey at an amount not to exceed $7,500 for the 2-foot contours and $2,500 for the as-built survey to be paid out from the account mentioned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1076 is for the Roth property demolition. This is bid EH 22037. This is the bid is available September 1st, 2022, and the bid is due back on September 29th, 2022. If anyone has any questions, please contact the purchasing department at 631-324-4183.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1077 is a notice of bidders for EH 22036. This is the head of the harbor electrical upgrades. The bid is available September 8th, 2022, and the bid is due back on September 29th, 2022. If any questions, please contact the town purchasing department at 631-324-4183.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
1078 is to accept the bid EH 21043, the purchase delivery of jet skis for 2021, rebid number 3 for Maximum Motorsports, where we did a bid to accept the resolution in 2022-1031. Difficulties in supply chains from 2021 were justified. And now we're resolved that we're going to accept the 2 additional jet skis in the amount of $18,199 each from the funds that are mentioned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and
Third
carried.
time's the charm.
Exactly.
1079 is a budget modification for highway, transferring $250 from part-time salaries to general insurance in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1078 is adopt a policy for temporary modular storage as described.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
1081 is hire Silver Wolf Environmental for the police department to take air monitoring service in the amount not to exceed $1,850.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
I have Resolution 2022-1082, which is to adopt the Town of East Hampton Coastal Assessment Resiliency Plan. Whereas the Town of East Hampton desires to maintain a sustainable and economically viable community, ensure public safety, maintain essential functions, prevent or minimize storm-related damages, protect natural resources, reduce the exposure of vulnerable assets, and facilitate a quick response to and recovery from extreme weather or climate events. Whereas the Town of East Hampton has completed a Coastal Assessment Resilience Plan, CARP, in recognition of the need for proactive planning to address its vulnerabilities to sea level rise, shoreline erosion, and flooding. Whereas the Town of East Hampton utilized a New York State Department of State grant to hire a team of experts to conduct a hazard risk analysis, public outreach, and compose the Coastal Assessment Resilience Plan. Whereas the Town of East Hampton formed a committee, the CARP committee of appointed members from a variety of community and environmental organizations to oversee and guide the development of the project. The CARP committee voted on April 20th to finalize the CARP plan and post the CARP plan publicly, move forward to the town board with a recommendation CARP to be formally adopted. Whereas the Committee co-chair and town environmental analysis presented the plan to the board on May 17th, 2022. And whereas the town board reviewed the coastal assessment resilience plan and held a public hearing on August 4th, 2022, and commended the CARP committee on its work on this proactive plan and fully supported its adoption into the East Hampton Town Comprehensive Plan. Whereas the adoption of the proposed plan is a type 2 action under New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, pursuant to Part 617.5C24 and Town Code Chapter 128. And as such, no further environmental review of the proposed project is required. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the town of East Hampton adopts the Coastal Assessment Resiliency Plan into the town of East Hampton Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
And I thank everybody for their work on
Congratulations.
this one.
It's been a multi-year
Exciting.
project, so it's good to be where we are.
Yes, and I thank you for your leadership on it as well, Peter, and everyone on the board. Resolution 2022-1084, it's a budget modification.
1083.
1083, sorry, too excited. 2022-1083 is accept proposal East Hampton Police Department HVAC feasibility study. Done a number of these lately, and whereas the town desires to replace aging HVAC systems for certain town buildings to aid in the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy and in compliance with the town's climate emergency declaration, whereas a Nelson Pope Engineering, Architecture and Land Surveying PLLC submitted a proposal dated November 4th to conduct an East Hampton Police Department HVAC feasibility study to recommend options and project budgets for improvements, whereas the town of East Hampton directed grant funds in the amount of $5,000 from the Clean Energy Communities to be used to fund the HPD HVAC feasibility study. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the town board accepts the proposal of Nelson and Pope Engineering, Architecture and Land Surveying for professional services described in the proposal dated November 4th, 2021, at a cost not to exceed $5,000. And be it further resolved that the supervisor is authorized to enter into an agreement with Nelson and Pope to provide professional engineering as per their proposal, and that surveying work shall be paid for the outlined budget services from the account mentioned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
2022-1084 is budget modification for a NYSERDA grant, and whereas the town was awarded a grant from NYSERDA's Clean Energy Communities to be used to fund the EHPD HVAC feasibility in the amount of $5,000, be it resolved that the town board directs the budget office to make the following budget modifications for the grant amount on the expenditure and revenue account. So there is no impact to the 2022 operating budget, and that's to increase the revenue line state aid in the amount of $5,000 and increase the expenditure line for outside professional in the amount of $5,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
2022-1085 is a budget modification for the sanitation department, and it is resolved that the town board directs the budget office to make the following budget modifications for expected year and electrical expenses from budget line outside professional in the amount of $5,000 to the budget line for light and power in the amount of $5,000. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
2022-1086 is a change order at number 1 Greenway USA, whereas the town board solicited bids for home renovation at 54 Tub Oarsman project, and whereas the bid of Greenway USA LLC was the lowest bid received, meeting the specifications for home renovation at 54 Tub Oarsman project being in proper form, and whereas resolution 2022-685 accepted the bid. Accepting the bid was amended for a total cost of $170,250 to be taken from the appropriate fund line in the amount of $53 So that's a certain fund line CM 8681 in the amount of $53,680 and fund line CDBG in the amount of $116,570 for home renovation at the subject property project, and all other aspects remain as indicated in the prior resolution. Whereas the town would like to require additional work consisting of the installation of plywood subfloor over an existing particle board floor. And whereas Kimberly Batista is a part-time and season, oh, I'm sorry, skip the line there. That didn't make any sense. Whereas the contractor provided a cost estimate of $4,030.08 dated August 16, 2022. And as proposed, whereas the contractor has proposed the installation of gas heating and hot water system in lieu of the oil system specified in the bid specs. Whereas the contractor has provided an estimate dated August 16, 2022, that it would result in a net reduction in the cost of $1,000. And whereas this is acceptable to the prospective buyer and the town, be it resolved that change order number 1 in the amount of $3,030.08 is hereby approved, and the total contract amount is hereby increased from $170,250 to $173,280.08, and be it further resolved that the additional cost of $3,030.08 shall be paid from the appropriate budget line and shall be added to the sales price upon time of sale.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 2022-1087 is to schedule a public hearing and notice a public hearing, East Hampton, Sag Harbor Road Fire Protection District Agreement 2023. That hearing will take place on September 15th, which is a Thursday at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard. For the fire protection services during 12-month period for 2023, Sag Harbor Village shall pay on or before February 1st, 2023, total sum of $41,757.17 for ambulance protection services during the 12-month period. The village shall also pay, on or before February 1st, total sum of $25,053.44. And again, another $8,673.97 for ambulance corps. And for total contract services for the ambulance fire protection is $77,769.17.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. Resolution 1088 is to appoint part-time school crossing guard Kimberly Batista. That is at hourly rate of $20 per hour, effective September 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed carried. Resolution 1089 is to appoint part-time school crossing guards Joseph Chaco and Paul Gonzalez, and again for $20 per hour and effective September 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed carried. 1090 is to for PO Police Officer Lloyd and Police Officer Pitt for training, and this is for law enforcement and protective services to be held at Grobeski Airport, West Hampton, New York, on September 12th through September 23rd, and that is not to exceed $4,690, and this is for important police training on motorcycles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1091 is for Detective Coleman training, and that's for homicide seminar sponsored by New York State Police, being held at New York State Police Academy in Albany, New York, from September 18th through September 24th, and that will cover the registration fees, hotels, fuel, meals, and other allowable expenses, not to exceed $1,250.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1092 is to revise the town vehicle use policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1093 is to amend resolution 2022-1024. And that is whereas resolution 2022-1024, the CSEA Schedule A was amended to reflect the regrading of scale operator and senior scale operator. Now be it resolved that scale operator at grade 17 for $20.91, senior scale operator grade 20 at $22.60, and real property recorder 3 at grade 23, starting hourly rate $25.04.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1094 is to amend resolution 2022-496 to retain Sokoloff Stern LLP, special counsel, and Soto versus Tukolsky et al. That is Sokoloff Stern shall be compensated at a rate of $250 for partners per hour, $230 for associates, $110 for paralegals. Payment made upon properly submitted claim vouchers in an amount not to exceed $30,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1095 is to approve expenditure for the East End Supervisors and Mayors Luncheon for 2022, and that is for Sunset Harbor at a quote of $1,260.
Second.
Not to exceed that amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1096 is to update security cameras at the airport. And that is whereas A Plus Technology submitted a proposal dated August 5th, 2022 to provide a 3-year license updating and hosting security cameras at a total cost of $22,948.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1097 is authorization of water purchases, and this is in connection with the town's obligation under New York State Department of Environmental Conservation consent order entered into by the town, authorized by Resolution 2022-526. Town's obligated to connect certain properties to public water as directed from time to time by the New York State DEC. And this is authorizing a reimbursement to Regano LLC for distribution of bottled water in the amount not to exceed $5,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 1098 is Ricardo reimbursement, whereas resolution 2022-1063, Joseph Riccardi was appointed part-time police officer, East Hampton Police Department, and this would be for out-of-pocket expenses for uniforms beginning August 22nd, and this is amount not to exceed $1,000.
Second.
All in
Sorry,
favor?
apologize.
No worries.
Uh,
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried.
Thank you.
1099, authorized payment to the Suffolk County Clerk, 2022.
I think I'd rather make a motion to table this if you don't mind.
I agree. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. We'll table this. Resolution 2022-1100 is retain Savick and Murray Airport obstruction removal. I'm going to actually not offer this one. 1101, increase the cap for Cooley LLP as outside airport counsel. Whereas resolution 2022-484, the firm Cooley LLP was retained to provide legal services for the town for the fiscal year 2022, whereas the legal expenses authorized were not to exceed $1.5 million, whereas the town is determined to increase the cap on expenditures as needed as matters are still pending regarding the East Hampton Airport. Therefore, be it resolved that the said legal fees paid out on the airport budget line to outside professional in an amount not to exceed $2.7 million.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. 1102 is to retain Troy Banks for utility telecom audit.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 1103 is to retain Savick and Murray Airport Engineering Construction Services. And that's in the amount of $24,200.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. 1104 is Wainscott Water Main Connections per New York State DEC consent order. And those properties are 33 Montauk Highway for $2,750, 370 Montauk Highway for $10,000, 338 Montauk Highway for $9,400, 5 Hedges Lane, Waynescott for $7,500, and 40 Daniels Hall Road for $10,500. And resolve the town board here authorizes the allocation, total amount of $40,150 for the installations above, together with 20% contingency of $8,030. In any event, the anticipated charges are required to complete the installations. Such sums are paid for the budget line herein, bringing the total authorized expenditures for water connections to date to $192,707.62.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1105 is notice to bidders, EH 22038, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and other uniform items for 2022. The bids available September 8th, 2022, and due back September 22nd, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. Resolution 1106, budget modification supervisor. This is moving $125 from vehicle repairs and supplies and $1,260 from conferences and dues to office expense in the amount of $125 and conference and dues in the amount of $1,260.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1107 is budget modification for employee supplemental pay. Whereas on August 18th, the town board adopted resolution 2022-1065, which authorized supplemental payments to eligible town employees. Now therefore be it resolved, the town board directs the budget officer to make necessary budget modifications pursuant to the attached for each fund, and that said appropriations are funded by unreserved fund balance for each indicated fund. Financial impact is $675,628.50 by unreserved fund balances.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried. 1108 is a budget modification for the airport. This is moving from appropriated unreserved fund balance in the amount of $142,500 to subcontractor costs in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried. Budget modification for a town attorney is resolution 1109. And that is moving $48,180 from state aid mortgage tax to miscellaneous payments amount in the same total.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed, carried. 1110 is budget modification for the town attorney. And that is moving from state aid mortgage tax in the amount of $50,000 to outside professional in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed, carried. Resolution 1111 is a budget modification for the airport. That is moving $46,500 from full-time salaries and $3,500 from longevity to outside professional in the amount of $50,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. I believe we have additional.
We do.
resolution.
I have 2022-1112. It's a notice of public hearing to amend the comprehensive plan to include the community housing implementation plan. Resolved that a second public hearing is hereby scheduled to be held on amending the town's comprehensive plan to incorporate a community housing implementation plan, the plan, in accordance with subsection 6 of the proposed amendments to chapter 160 of the town code entitled Community Housing Opportunity Fund, to implement the authority given to the town to establish a dedicated fund to provide a variety of needed housing opportunities as authorized by Chapter 445 of the laws of 2021 entitled An Act to Amend the Town Law and the Tax Law in relation to authorizing towns in the Peconic Bay region to establish community housing funds to be funded by a supplemental real estate transfer tax. A copy of the plan is available at the town clerk's office or online. This public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 6th at 2 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried.
Resolution 1113 is terminate employee in the highway department retroactive to August 31st, 2022.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passed and carried. 1114 is a resolution to accept grant of scenic easement and conservation easement for Godsell Development Corp. LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1115 is to accept grant of scenic conservation easement for GDC Montauk LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Are there any other resolutions or matters to bring before the town board?
I have no resolutions, but I know this would be the last meeting that we have before school begins. I know we do have a meeting on the first day of school on Tuesday, but as we move up to that, as we heard from members of the community today, let's slow down for our kids, make sure we give them a safe way to get to school. And that's what I say.
Thank you so much for that, David.
I'd like to make a motion to go into exec session to discuss personnel, license agreements, and contracts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.